Hey everyone, today is Thursday and we want to talk about post-impressionism. We are looking at chapter 13 and we're reviewing to make sure that we're prepared for our exam. We are doing a review this week. So I want you to look at and understand and learn about post-impressionism. And then I want you to upload five things that you learned about post-impressionism today from this video. Okay, so I'm gonna share this with you and we'll get started. Share my computer sound. Okay. All right.
Post-Impressionism emerged around 1885 and held sway in the artistic world until around 1914. Post-Impressionist artists aimed to make art an emotional experience through the use of symbolism, vibrant colors, and captivating forms. Post-Impressionism can be thought of as an exaggerated form of the Impressionism that came before. Like Impressionists, Post-Impressionists focused on what viewers might see if they only caught a glimpse of the scene portrayed. A major difference between the two movements was that instead of focusing on displaying light and color in a naturalistic manner like Impressionists, Post-Impressionists used more calculated juxtapositions and symbolism as tools to convey meaning in their work. Another difference was that Post-Impressionists chose rural scenes and everyday subjects for their paintings over Impressionism's high-fashion urban scenes. The impressions recorded by Post-Impressionists were less journalistic and more highly personal, and artists' thick brushstrokes drew attention to the expressivity of their art. The Post-Impressionist movement was initiated by a few independent artists. Paul Cézanne was the oldest of this group, which also included masters like Vincent van Gogh, Paul Gauguin, and Georges Seurat. Seurat had begun experimenting with color even before the Post-Impressionist movement took shape. He placed dabs of pure color next to each other instead of mixing them, like traditional artists did. That way, the viewer's eye could blend the painting's colors, which meant that the same painting could appear differently to different individuals. Cézanne used thick daubs of color throughout his work, often applying the paint with a palette knife. He experimented with reducing objects to basic geometric forms. Cézanne portrayed various elements as simplistic shapes and laid them out flat on the canvas, giving a decidedly abstract look and feel. His greatest complaint with the Impressionist tradition was that it did not allow artists to refine and harmonize the visual elements in the picture. This was the basis for the Cubist movement, which would grow out of Post-Impressionist art. Cézanne revived interest in the still life, which had been neglected by artists for nearly 300 years. His thick daubs of paint added dimension and expressivity to the still life objects. His real innovation, however, was incorporating multiple perspectives of still life objects in a single work. One example of this is the scene of apples spilling across a table next to an imbalanced stack of cookies in Cézanne's still life, The Basket of Apples. The cookies and apples in the painting are portrayed with multiple viewpoints, multiple locations, and moments in time. While Cézanne specifically avoided playing with light and shadow as his Impressionist predecessors did, the objects he features are vibrant and vivid because of his textured application of carefully juxtaposed color gradations. For Georges Seurat, it was Impressionism's lack of lines and detailing that led him to Post-Impressionist style. Seurat's technique is known as pointillism, although he preferred to call it divisionism, referring to his calculated division of color splotches to retain color's vibrancy, instead of watering down colors and mixing them. Seurat wanted viewers to mix the vibrant colors using their own imagination and eyes. With this technique, Seurat could bring in subtle shading and some very interesting color blends. Seurat's large-scale painting, A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of Le Grand Jeté, is his most widely recognized work. Le Grand Jeté depicts boaters, animals, and a fashionably dressed Sunday crowd taking in the view of the Seine. Seurat admired the classic art of the Renaissance and Egyptian art, Greece and Roman. The large-scale and serious tone of his best-known painting hint at many classical themes. Unlike classic paintings, however, Seurat's work is not meant to prescribe or teach. The relationships between the people in the painting are up for interpretation, and the abstract impressions of their faces invite viewers to decide what their feelings and thoughts might be. Although post-impressionists like Cézanne and Seurat made their displeasures with the impressionist technique known, they were still heavily influenced by this style. Another well-known artist from this time is Vincent van Gogh. He moved further away from the impressionist ideas than Seurat and Cézanne did. Along with his troubled artist personality, Van Gogh is remembered for his masterpieces, The Starry Night, Sunflowers, and Café Terrace at Night. For Van Gogh, art was about color above all else. In this respect, he had an impressionist mindset, but the scenes Van Gogh depicted were more of an instinctive response than a scientific study of the scene. That meant he did not always do the meticulous study of the light and color found in nature before transferring his impressions onto canvas. His science was juxtaposing colors which would enhance or understate certain elements of his work. Van Gogh also moved away from realism, but he never overlooked the emotional aspect of his art. In this respect, I would say that Van Gogh was a particularly spiritual post-impressionist. Paul Gauguin is another spiritual post-impressionist. In his painting The Yellow Christ, Gauguin depicts three kneeling Breton women praying at a grotto. Gauguin's use of simplistic lines, shapes, and exaggerated color show the intense emotional state of the praying group. Gauguin had successfully adopted the vibrant use of color that Impressionists favored and tweaked it to achieve his own personal style, one that aimed to draw the viewer in emotionally. The intense emotion of post-impressionist visual art inspired other artistic disciplines as well. Post-impressionist literature carried many of the same ideas over to writing in highly personal stream of consciousness novels like James Joyce's Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man and Virginia Woolf's Miss Dalloway. These novels challenged norms of literacy perspective and invited viewers into the increasingly symbolic and intensely emotional worlds of their protagonists. Although post-impressionist artists had been experimenting with their new styles for a while, the style began attracting followers and admirers only after art historian and critic Roger Fry arranged a post-impressionist exhibition in 1910. Fry, who incidentally discovered Cézanne's work, believed that the conventional art of the time was growing stale. He felt that the art world needed a shakeup of sorts, and that's exactly what he tried to achieve by displaying the art of Gauguin, Van Gogh, and Cézanne prominently. He called his show Manet and the Post-Impressionists. This was actually what gave the evolving style its name. The exhibition took the art world by storm, and Roger Fry did what he set out to do, to highlight the importance of emotional significance in art. The show brought substantial publicity to this emerging style. It also ensured that many more beginning and established artists would explore their own ways of challenging the limitations that Impressionism had imposed on their artistic expression. Post-Impressionist experimentation with color, form, and perspective would inspire Cubist artists like Pablo Picasso, Salvador Dali, and Juan Gris to stretch the limits of perspective, abstract form, and emotionality even further in the early 20th century.
All right. All right. So let's see. All right. So I just wanted to be able to show you all an example of that. And I think it's interesting to see it in that particular light to understand how post-impressionism is different from impressionism. It kind of has a different swing to it when we see cubism involve geometric shapes, lighting, things of that nature. So go ahead and post your 5 facts today. Upload that, and we will talk about tomorrow. Make sure you all take good notes this week. All right, thanks.